can't wait to see you like on Stephen Colbert or Jimmy Kimmel or whatever it's going to be. That's going to be awesome. I'm going to be like, I know him. I have a picture of him with short hair. Oh, welcome to November, folks. We made it. This month, we're going to be talking about this book called Creating the Beloved Community. Now, the other name of it is A Handbook for Spiritual Leadership. And I know that we have a few copies of this in our bookstore. I don't want you to get thrown by the whole spiritual leadership thing. You are the leader in your own life as well. If you don't like the idea of being a leader of multiple people, tough. Because the truth is, by living your life, you are showing people how to live. You are showing people how to live a centered life and a grounded life and all the different things that hallelujah can mean. And just by your being in the world, you're inspiring other souls. Now, you might be inspiring them to never, ever be like you. Has anyone had that kind of teacher? Or boss? Yeah, I remember when I was that boss. We all go through our learning curve, right? So the idea of being a spiritual leader really just means being the best spiritual person, living in the best spiritual community that you can manage on any given day. Now, in 10 years, you might be doing a lot better, but today, you're dealing with today and living it as fully and as completely and as lovingly as you can. And that's what we're here to do today. That's what I'm here to do. I wouldn't have guessed that song was coming, and I'm so glad it was that hallelujah. Leonard Cohen knew a lot about the angst of living in this world, and he, as a poet, he excelled at sharing that. And he used this very old word to talk about a very immediate experience for him. And it's interesting to me that I have been in multiple conversations. It's not really surprising, but it is always interesting. I've been in multiple conversations this week about the old artwork, the old meanings of words, the old way of doing things, and how it's lost its juice in some ways because we no longer understand the metaphors. We look at a piece of art and don't recognize all of the in-jokes, all of the symbolism that was obvious when the painting was created, or a poem. And it made me wonder how many of you actually knew who was being referred to by the confused king singing Alleluia, and who was being referred to by the woman on the roof. That was David and Bathsheba. And then immediately switches to Delilah and Samson. And these are rich stories full of power and full of grace. And I know that Hazel Bowman just finished a class on Bible history and scholarship. There have been times in my life where I was really, really resistant to going to the old way of doing things to see if I could learn anything. Because I was sure, like many of my compatriots, that the newest and shiniest must be the best, right? I think we're awakening in this country to the idea that newest and shiniest isn't always the best. That there are values and meanings that we have left behind in our institutions that we can reclaim. We come together for spiritual community. And we come together in person. But at another level, we're also coming together on Facebook, live streaming right now, and people will be showing up on YouTube at some point and joining with us in the one mind to hear these words and to feel your energy at the same time. But we come together in a very old-fashioned format, which looks like church. I never thought I would go back to church. I sure didn't think I'd end up in this seat. Nobody ever tries to steal my seat, oddly enough. So all of that juxtaposition of the old and the new and the richness that's available to us has very much been on my mind this week. And we have the old-fashioned tradition of going to the polls to vote and to speak our word, speak our truth to power in a way that is beautiful and peaceful and good. And it's our way of saying to people, this is who I am and this is what I want. Now here, we join in consciousness to claim good. Voting is just another way of doing that. And so I really encourage you, if you have not already voted, I do it by mail, and so I sent mine in weeks ago, and I'm like, yay, me, in this quiet little party. I really encourage you to take the time. Participate in that very old-fashioned democratic process with the new consciousness of what it means. And having looked at the issues and looked at the people and chosen for yourself who represents you. Now, I can't even remember all the numbers, so I'm not going to get into any of them. But I'm also going to point out that the beloved community is another example of old words that we have kind of lost the flavor of. The beloved community is a very old Christian way of talking about what we would now call utopia and the powerful bonds that exist when people come together in the name of love to create a world that works for everyone. Now, all of those words are new, right? Well, they're not new, okay, but they're new to us. We think we invented them with the global heart. And yet, there's a deep and rich history behind it. So just so that we're all on the same page, I can tell you that Reverend Howard Thurman, great philosopher and theologian, defined the beloved community as, a coming together of all people, races, genders, and belief into one universal humanity. Does that sound familiar? At the King Center in Atlanta, what they write is, and this, it made me giggle when I was reading it this morning as part of the new member thing, says that the beloved community is, and I quote, a global vision in which all people can share in the wealth of the earth. In the beloved community, poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated because international standards of human decency will not allow it. Racism and all forms of discrimination will be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of sisterhood and brotherhood. It's the global heart vision that we thought we invented. One of the things that happened really quickly after we came up with the tagline, "A world that works for everyone," was we realized people had stolen it retroactively. It seems to be some version of that is a very common vision now. So, oh my gosh, this stuff works. Who'd have thunk it? I mean, other than all of us. So what is the beloved community today? This book takes us through some of the things that are going on in the world right now in terms of where spiritual community is moving in the 21st century. But the most important part about the beloved community is that it is never meant to be perfect. Did you know you don't have to be perfect to live in the beloved community? As a matter of fact, you'll annoy the rest of us if you try. I mean, have you ever tried to live with a perfect person? I know I've asked this question several times. Excuse me. In general, what it means is that we live by stated values. Can anyone remember what our 4 values are? You're cheating because you painted them. It's kind of hard to forget when you spent that many hours. Just shout them out. Love, joy, inclusivity, and spiritual growth. I heard that. We choose to live by those to the best of our ability on any given day. Recognizing that when we go out into the world and say that we are living by those values, people will begin to associate us with whether we do or whether we don't, and to what degree we can manage it. So today, I'm really excited that Temple Berith Shalom is participating with our kids in the classroom right now. We brought all the kids together and we say, here, go nuts with the paint. Not too nuts, and there's lots of plastic everywhere. But they got together in order to decorate the boxes that will collect canned goods when we do our evening of Thanksgiving on November 15th, I believe. It's the Thursday before Thanksgiving over at St. Luke's Episcopal. If we're really going to practice inclusivity, it has to be okay to at least bring the kids together to paint. I mean, really. It has to be okay for me to stand up here and say that, yes, we are part of something going on at an Episcopal church. I'm excited because this afternoon we have a table at the Prescott Valley Spirit Life Expo, which one of our congregants organized. So yeah, it's essentially a psychic fair. And I'm going to go over there this afternoon and I'm going to have a blast. And I'm going to check out our table and see how we're doing. Because even though we are not New Age, which is the blanket term for that, we're actually not that. We're something called New Thought. They're cool people. They're wonderful people who are also trying to live from their highest thought. And if I can encourage that, if I can encourage Lisa Kidder, you may not know who Lisa is, but you know her son Owen, who is always up here and is very comfortable with a microphone. So we start doing these things. And we reach out and live from inclusivity. We're not going to make any money from it. And I'm so excited about that. Because it's not all about money. This is about us living and doing for free, essentially, the things that we say we value. Being inclusive means that I finally found the temple, which is almost within walking distance and has been for the 8.5 years I've been here, and I've never been able to find it before. But now we have a connection with them. Our kids are friends with their kids. That's what creates community. I've been told that part of the reason that we have so much animosity in politics these days is because the representatives and the senators and everybody mostly no longer live in Washington. They live at home, and then they fly in for whatever days they have to work. Now, that makes sense. I'd want to be at home with my family, too. But once upon a time, the tradition was you move your whole family to Washington. And then the kids are going to school next to each other. And it doesn't matter what political persuasion you hold. When your kid says, I'm going to so-and-so's birthday, you're going. And you got to bring something nice and no, you're not going to talk politics. And those people are going to become human beings to you, not faceless talking points. And that's something that we can create here. We don't need to talk about things that are going to cause angst. What we need to do is talk to each other as human beings. And eventually we'll be able to talk about the stuff that's difficult. So we live by our values. Another value we hold is love. And so 20 people showed up last night at the Habitat for Humanity Gala. All of us escaped without buying any of the big ones. I'm not having to leave the country this year because of that gala, because last year we accidentally ended up in Greece. It was fun. But 20 of us, 20% of our usual Sunday group, showed up and went and ate pretty good food and really good dessert. One person had to leave early, so Robert, you'll be happy to know your dessert was taken care of. And we came together in the name of love to get to know each other at our tables and to support those people who are creating homes for themselves. Now, that's the one thing we all learned last night. The house is not free. There is no such thing as a free house. All of us heard that about 15 times. There's a 30-year mortgage on it. They work their butts off. They have to take classes. It is not an easy way to get a free house. It's neither easy nor free, frankly. But it is a sweet house. The other thing that we must do to be a beloved community is to live by our principles. We have stated principles. We have the Declaration of Principles, which those of you who have ever become members, because it's in your packet, or gotten a new members packet, or taken foundations, you know what these principles are, at least enough to recognize them when they're read to you. And we have to actually know our principles. We have to know them so deeply and have spent enough time with them that we can say we truly believe or do not believe them. Ernest Holmes wrote in The Science of Mind, "We only know as much as we can prove by actual demonstration. That which we cannot prove may or may not be true, but that which we can prove certainly must be and is the truth. We only really know as much as we can prove by demonstration." It's in the Christian tradition. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. Basically, you cannot pick a cantaloupe off of a tomato plant. If we absolutely know the truth, it will show up in our lives. If we are the plants planted from the seed of love and joy, our lives are going to show that. Now, it doesn't mean you're bad if there's some part of your life that looks less than joyful. It means you get to stay on the planet and keep working on it. Yay, job security. Karen Armstrong wrote, "The one and only test of a valid religious idea, doctrinal statement, spiritual experience, or devotional practice was that it must lead directly to practical compassion." The only test of our faith is whether it leads us to more compassion and love. And to quote myself, if it makes you mean, stop doing it. If it makes you mean, if it makes you unhappy, if it makes you realize that you are cutting the people you love out of your life in order to stick with a particular doctrine, I would suggest to you that that doctrine is not serving you or anyone else. I remember going to a particular church right after I became a born-again Christian. Yes, I did. And I wasn't able to stay because the way the minister spoke from the pulpit about another faith was so hateful and so full of misinformation that I had to write him a note, which as a minister now, it's like, oh God, I did that. I critiqued, don't mind me. And all I got back was a phone call from someone else saying that, morning. There it is. It's just doing itself. But I just do, there it is. I was pushing it the wrong way. See, there's an example of not being perfect. Just so that you have an example today. And see, we get to laugh about it. Joy, one of our thingy-doos. So let's just go now, exactly as we are and exactly as we are not, into a consciousness of the presence of the divine by whatever name we know it. And in this moment, I celebrate that it knows us by every name we've ever been called, every feeling we've ever had, every attempt we've ever made to live a life more centered in principle. It is this truth that is living within us right now, that we are the place where God is right now, that allows us to be attracted to the idea of a life of principle. And it is that absolute truth within us that guarantees that each and every one of us will see the outpicturing of those desires in our lives. I celebrate that good. I celebrate that the presence of Spirit is the healing. It is the prosperity. It is all of those good things that we put into prayer. And that presence of Spirit is absolute. It is the principle from which we live, that God is all there is, fully present in the here and now. And so with a grateful and trusting heart, I release these words to the law. I know it is perfect and good, and so it is. And I'll ask that